All right, welcome back to the garage. I'm just playing with Lucille a little bit here. A couple weekends ago, I was at the Wild Rose Rod and Custom 36th Annual Toy Run, and it was a pretty fun event because there was a little bit of a car show, and they had a poker run where you'd drive around and get playing cards at different stations and make the best poker hand. Unfortunately, I got 3 stops in, and she got hot. It was about 90 degrees that day, and driving stop and go traffic downtown here, she got up to 230 degrees, and I shut it off because I thought, that's just too hot. Shut it off, cooled it off. I keep a spray bottle of water in the trunk, and so I was able to spray the radiator and spray the engine just a little bit, kind of lightly there, and get it cooled off so that I could drive it home, and just kind of parked it and haven't dealt with it since. Really kind of a piss off because I was working on a straight flush. I had a 6, 7, and 8 of clubs, and I could have had a pretty decent poker hand. But this car is more important to me than some silly poker hand. Now then, before that, whenever I would drive this thing anywhere and park it, I'd get out and there'd be a big puddle of coolant underneath it. What I did is I changed the radiator cap. This is the old one that was on there. Put a new one on there, and that put a stop to that. So I think this guy was bad. But since then, it's overheating, and I want to deal with that. And the best way that I think of to deal with that right now is a coolant flush. So I got some of this here, clean flow 10-minute rad flush. I'm going to do a couple rounds of that on it, try and clean out the cooling system really well, and see if that improves things a bit. Let's get cracking on that. First thing, take the old radiator cap off here and see. Yeah, she's a little low. I don't know if you can see in there, but there's some coolant in there. I'll go and dump one of those bottles in here, top it off with I've got some distilled water here, top it off with that, and run it for 10 minutes, heat it up, get it circulating through everything, turn the heater on, and then dump it out and see what we get. All right. See if she'll hold the whole thing. Come on, baby. Let's squeeze this hose over here. Get that to go down. Get this little guy. Go bloop bloop. Bloop bloop bloop. Bloop 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 bloop. Kind of smells like paint. Which I'm sure it wouldn't be good to put paint in a radiator, but I don't think this is paint, it just smells like paint. Come on. Come on, little glub glub. Okay, got that whole bottle to fit in there. Now let's fire her up and let it do its thing. I gotta make sure that I turn the heater all the way on and get that going, and give this 10 minutes and see what happens. Alright, after 20 minutes of running, sitting here idling, never got over 180. It is kind of cool out in the garage today. I mean, it's not hot by any means. Let's see what the old temperature gauge in here says. Oh yeah. Yeah, 70 degrees out here, so not hot, but the engine didn't get hot either, so let's drain that coolant out of there and see what's in it. Now, there's a little pepcock down there that I can crack open and drain the fluid out, but instead of making a mess everywhere, I'm going to throw this little elbow piece of PEX on there and see if I can't try and contain the mess. Let's do that. See how badly I can burn myself now. Oh, not at all. Let's see what comes out of there now. Should be able to go ahead and crack this. She's a little warm. Let's grab a rag. Crack this guy open just a little bit. Get that flowing in that direction. Make sure this doesn't bubble out of here. Yeah, so far so good. It's still running out of there. I don't know if you see down in there. Yeah, not too bad. Let's see what we got. Okay, I got quite a bit out of that little pepcock there. I'm going to switch over here and pull off that lower radiator hose here and see what comes out of there. There was a big chunk of something that was sitting right there, and I hit it with a little piece of wire and it fell down in there. So hopefully that drains out the bottom. But let's take a look. Yep, there it goes. Now we're making a mess. Oh yeah. Ah, shit, that's hot. Yeah, you know. Okay, I got the radiator emptied from the lower radiator hose. I ran some hose water, pulled the hose in here, ran some water in the top here, as well as I pulled off that radiator hose and ran some water in there. Stump that into there and see what we got. That's some tasty looking stuff. Delicious. Yeah, there's some little chunkies in there. And I think, if I can get that rattling around, I think that's that chunk that I knocked off in there. But yeah, let's fill this back up with distilled water and another one of those flush bombs and run it for another 10 or 20 minutes and see what we get out of it then. Okay, after sitting here idling for 20 minutes with the clean flow and the distilled water in it, temperature gauge says it's 190. Let's pop this thing open and see what we get out of it. Okay, here's the milky stuff that came out of it that time. I'm going to give it one more flush with just the distilled water here. Apparently it takes about 2.5 gallons. Yeah, 2.5 gallons to fill the thing, and so I've got lots of water left. So I'll run another flush through it and see what we get. Okay, I wanted a way that I could try and force all of the coolant out of the radiator here and back flush it out through that pepcock over there. So what I did is I took one of the lids off of the distilled water there. I melted a hole in it that's just big enough for my little air nozzle, plugged into my thing there, and it fits just about perfectly down in there. And I can just give it just a little, and I don't know if you can see over there, but yeah, it pushes the rest of that coolant out of there. So let's give it another flush and see where we're at. Here's the water that just came out of it. It's still kind of milky, but it's getting better. I've got enough water, so I might as well do one more flush and see what we got. Okay, here's the latest flush water. It's about as good as I think I'm gonna get it, so I'm gonna quit flushing there, as well as I'm just about out of water. I've got 1 gallon left, so I'm gonna throw this pre-mixed antifreeze in there and run her. Let's do that. Okay, after the radiator flush, it seems like she's running a little bit cooler, but there again, it is fall out there, so the temperatures are falling a little bit, so that also helps out. Good news, I got lug nuts. Look at these babies. Yes, sir. These have got the longer shank on them. Here's one of the new ones compared to the old ones. With the old ones, I was only able to get about 6 turns on those rear wheels, I was able to get 8 on the fronts because they're discs on the front, and so I guess that's a little bit thinner and allows the stud to stick out a little bit more. But in the back there, and wasn't real happy with that. I want at least like 9 turns. Let's see here. Yeah, these are 0.74s, and these are. Let's see if we can slide this little duder. Yeah, this is 0.9. 0.946, I believe. Yeah, somewhere out in there. Anyway, longer, more thread engagement, less likelihood of stripping the studs as well as breaking and falling off. So I'm going to run around and change those real quick, and then we're going to take this baby out for a rip. Let's do that. All right, got the lug nuts all swapped out and took her for a little cruise there. She still runs a little bit hot. Not real happy about that. If anybody wants some shank style lug nuts, these are 0.7465 is the length of the shank here. Hit me up and we'll work out a deal and I'll send them to you. I don't think that I need them. I've got good lug nuts now. I want to install a Tach, because every good muscle car should have a tachometer. This little autometer here came off the Camaro whenever I got it. It was just pipe clamped to the steering column. Now, I'd like a little better system of mounting it. A little better system of mounting it than the pipe clamp, but I'll get to that later. For now, I can take a look at the various wiring gremlins that may or may not exist here, such as these wire nuts. The original carburetor had the kickdown switch mounted here, which, you know, whenever you press the accelerator 3/4 of the way down, it tells the transmission to downshift, so you apply all the power to the ground. Well, whoever built this car, they moved that to the inside. So the wires that originally went over here to the kickdown switch now are pigtailed and they run inside. And I'll show you what they run to. There's a switch on the fuel pedal, on the gas pedal right here. Oh, yeah. This guy right here. Okay, and whenever you press the accelerator all the way down, see how it hits that switch? Yeah, that's your kickdown switch, and that tells the transmission to downshift. So that guy's wired in there. There's also a power antenna switch here. Runs the power antenna, and of course it's all just kind of fabric cobbled in here. There are more wire nuts, as well as over here at the fuse block. So I'm going to take a look at some of this stuff and see if I can't clean this up a little bit, as well run the wires for the Tach in here so that I can mount that. I want to put it on the steering column kind of the way that it was, because I think that's really badass and kind of muscle car-y whenever they have the Tach just hanging out there. Thought about putting it on the dash, but this dash is perfect. I really don't want to do anything to ruin it. So that's where I'm at now. Let's take a look at some of this stuff and see if we can figure it out. Okay, I've got that Tach wired up right now. I put this blue wire in here to run over here. This has got an HEI distributor on it. So the HEI distributor's got a positive lead that runs in here, right there, and then your tachometer lead runs in there. I know there's a pigtail that I can buy that'll connect in here a lot nicer than just this spade connector in here. So I'll eventually do that. I'll eventually get that pigtail and then wire this in properly. But for now, I think that'll work just fine. Now, I noticed, yeah, there's some electrical tape on this positive wire coming in here to this HEI distributor. And I'm like, well, that should be coming from over here. And if you look, back whenever this thing had a points distributor on it, it used an external coil. And that coil would mount kind of right in here, and these wires right here would run over to it. Now, whenever the key's on, these guys are hot. And so that's what would charge that coil, power up the coil, and allow the points distributor to work. These were just electrical taped up. I guess I will put electrical tape back on them and kind of tuck them away over here. I'll show you what's going on the inside, because what they did is they ran that wire, the positive lead, over here to the fuse block. And I'll show you inside real quick kind of where they have that wired and how it's wired, because it's kind of neat. So I follow that wire in here. See if I can squeeze up underneath here. And you see there's 3 wires coming in this hole right here. Okay, 2 of those wires are for that kickdown switch, and the blue one, thick blue one there, runs over here to the fuse block. Now it doesn't go straight to the fuse block. It's wired in here, which is ignition hot. But I was tracing the wire out, and it actually comes up here. And if you can see this, there's a switch right here. And so what they did is they put a hidden kill switch on the thing. And that's what that is there. So that's a pretty neat idea. I mean, anti-theft, kind of at its most basic. But if they can't start up the car and drive it away, they'll have a harder time stealing it, right? So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. I'm not really going to mess with any of that. I got the Tach wired up. I ran all the wires over here to the other ignition hot. There's an ignition hot here, everything goes to, and then the spade connector up above it is continuously hot, and it runs off this fuse here, which runs the dome light. Whenever you open the door, I've got that fuse pulled out, so the light's off right now. Not running the battery down while I've got the door open working on here. But ran all my hots there, ran over here to my Tach. I still don't have a good way to mount it to the steering wheel, but it is wired up. Let's see if it's functional. Turn it over here, and this little guy here. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, all right. Now I just need to mount that thing, and I'll have a Tach, but I've got to figure out how to do that. Well, while I was thinking of a good way to mount that tachometer, I figured I'd take it for a cruise. So I cruised around the neighborhood, cruised around town a little bit, and came back and noticed I got some drippy drips. Well, looks like coolant. So I figured it wasn't running real hot. It got up to about 200 degrees was the hottest that it got up to. And so I figure, well, maybe she's hot and overflowing. But there's no drippy drips underneath there. But I look up in here and look, you see that? Heater core is leaking. So that's not cool. Not cool at all, man. Something else to look into, I guess. But that may have to wait for another day. Well, it's late October here, and Lucille is about to get prepped for a long winter's nap in an undisclosed location. So instead of tearing into that heater core and trying to fix that right now, what I'm going to do is just block it off, tie these 2 heater hoses together in some fashion. Haven't quite figured out exactly how I want to do that yet, but that's what I'll be doing, just bypassing the heater core for now, and then I can still drive it around a little bit and use it without leaking a whole bunch of coolant everywhere. Now, as I try and diagnose exactly why the heater core is leaking all of a sudden, I come to the radiator here, and if you look down in there, you can see some schmoo just around those veins. And I wonder if somebody had put some radiator stop leak in here. Perhaps this was leaking once before, they put that in there, and then whenever I did the radiator flush, it softened it up and got it moving around and opened up the hole that it's now leaking from. But that'll be something to investigate in the spring. For now, tie up those hoses. Let's do that. Now then, to start, I want to take this top hose off here, because that's the return line that runs down into the pump and pushes the water through the engine, and then it comes back out over here, right back here, and comes up and goes into the bottom of the heater core. So take off this guy. I may try and push some air through this to try and blow all the coolant out of the heater core, as well as try and prevent leaks whenever a big mess whenever I go to pull this bottom hose off there. So let's pull that off. Okay, I pulled this top heater hose off here, and then I cut another small piece of heater hose from some scrap that I had, piece of air hose from some other scrap that I had. Now my blow gun will fit right in here, and then I can blow the coolant out of that heater core. Let's do that. Well, you know, sometimes you try and you fail. I blew a little bit of air in there, and you know, I'm a complete moron. First off, I had the cap off here, so that shot coolant up everywhere. And then as well, this hose is just open-ended out here, so of course it shot coolant everywhere. So I think I'll just stick with making a mess and cleaning it up later. Yeah, I got that bottom hose off there, and now I want to tie these two together. I've got a piece of 3/4 inch copper pipe here. I think if I can slide it in both ends and clamp it down, it should work just fine. If not, I may have to go buy a fitting or something, but let's give it a try. Yeah, that's going to be too tight. It fits in there almost, but I think it's just going to be too tight. So I'm going to go try and buy a fitting to tie those together. Now, before I run off to the hardware store, I took a look over in my junk closet over there, and I found a piece of this stuff, which is about the right size. Here's a piece of heater hose, and I think she'll fit nice and snugly in there, and should work just fine. This is actually a piece of a folding camping chair. If you take a look here, one of the legs off of some folding camping chairs. The canvas tears on these things, but I still use them for other pieces. So that's what that is. That's a piece of that, and it should get me through the winter here at least, you know. So let's use what we got. Now that piece of steel fits in here real nice and tight in this side, but in the other side here, see if I can show you with one hand. Come on, it's kind of loose. It just slides in there. Now then, I've got lots of length here to clamp to, so it might be okay. But this heater hose here is too long, and I'm gonna cut it off so that I can tuck this down and kind of out of the way. I'll replace the heater hoses whenever I replace that heater core there. So not a big deal. Should be able to find those pretty easy. So that's what I'm gonna do. Cut that off, pull it down here, clamp it up good and tight, and see what we got. Okay, got her hose clamped together there. I put 2 clamps on the loose side, and the 1 clamp on the tight side should be just fine. Let's fire this thing up and see if she blows apart. All right, so far so good. Hasn't blown apart yet. We'll get it up to temperature and see what happens. Okay, I'm gonna call that fixed for now. In the spring, I'll pull that all apart and change out that heater core and get that working right. Now we can move on to fun stuff. This is the mount for that tachometer. And I don't know how I'm going to get this little guy to fit on the steering column. If we get right in here. I kind of want it to sit like that. I don't know if you can see in here. But, yeah, I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to do some head scratching. Okay, I got the Tach mounted. I just used a couple of pipe clamps. It's not what I would choose. It's not pretty, but it works. So that's what I've got for now. I'll probably end up changing that at some time, but that's what I got. Yeah, looks good to me. Well, it looks like I waited a day too long to put Lucille here away for the winter. Winter showed up early. That's okay. It's not too far over to the undisclosed storage facility where Lucille will be spending the winter. But I stabilized the fuel. I'm just about to drive it around a little bit and shake that in there. This is Sta-Bil Marine fuel stabilizer. Should keep the fuel fresh for the winter. I'll be visiting Lucille from time to time over the course of the next 6 or 8 months, depending on how long winter lasts. But that's all I'm going to do right now. It's probably the end of this video unless something else happens on the way there. But thanks for watching.